Hey everybody. No musical intro this episode because it's a little bit more on the serious side. I actually want to open this one up with apologizing to the person who submitted the question for this topic for not getting to this sooner. This was, I think, within the last couple of weeks, of which that time I let it sort of get away from me, and I very apologize for that. But hopefully this isn't so time sensitive that, this has caused any issue by me not giving the answer as soon as I could, and I hope that this still helps. This question comes from Impatiens, who asked, "Hello, Kirb. I have a very serious question. I'm wondering if you can answer it in a Kirblog. So earlier this year, I met a friend online, and we've grown very close. She helped me through my school troubles earlier, and I appreciate her very much. Lately, though, she's told me that she suffers from depression and cuts herself. She's also attempted suicide. I want to be a gentleman and help her, but I can't feel empathy there because I've never truly gone through depression. How should I help her?" So next I'd like to thank you for being patient, no pun intended on your screen name, for waiting for me to finally cover this one on the proper topic. I also want to preface my actual answer by saying that, and this should go without saying, but I still feel the need to put it out here anyway, that I am not any kind of expert on this subject matter or on any kind of mental health or self-care or anything whatsoever. I'm simply choosing to respond to this call to help in whatever way that I can, and be of use in as best as I possibly can. So I just want anybody else listening to this, who may or may not get anything out of it, I want you to understand I am not with this answer proclaiming to be any kind of expert on any of this. This is entirely just my own answer. So that aside, thank you for all the patience, everybody, including you. Impatiens. So I have been very fortunate that I have gone through very, very few and very small in comparison, bouts of depression. The most recent of which was kind of towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year, which I was able to get out of myself by working through it and having a very, very, loving support system of people who were there to help me get through it, which is also going to weigh into part of what I'm going to talk about with this. But I've been very fortunate in that the severity of my own personal issues have been pretty minimal compared to what a lot of people go through. And kind of as I was going through high school up until even today, I've met a lot more people who have far, far more serious, legitimate, issues with depression and anxiety and, and various, syndromes and disorders, etc. And I've tried my best to basically in any way that I can to the people I know who have, become friends of mine, throughout a long period of time, lend any help that I can. The very first example that I had that was really serious was actually, I think it was in my first year of college. And this was with a friend of mine who actually was somebody that I looked up to. They were an artist, and I had gotten to know them. We had hung out at a few conventions for a couple of years by that point, and by that point I had started doing a lot of stuff online and made a name for myself and everything, and had become a colleague of theirs, which was was really happy about because I respected them a lot as a person. I haven't talked with them in many, many years now. But I remember I was talking with them, and they were calling me on Skype and said, "Hey, I just need to talk to somebody. I'm kind of going through some shit." And they called me up, and they had told me that they had just, moments before they called me, had attempted suicide and failed. They did not go into the details of it. The details that they did go into was that somebody that they had been talking to was saying a lot of really, really nasty things to them, of which I had also not pry. The only thing I knew regarding that was the person in question that it was, to which myself and my roommate at the time, who, knew the person relatively well, maybe not quite as well as I did, but still, felt the severity of the situation, decided to weigh in, and we both were like, the person who is saying these things to you is a worthless piece of shit, and fuck them, and do not listen to them, and you don't deserve to feel that way because of what they've said to you. Now, this was the first time I'd ever really had to deal with something like that with a person that I knew, where it was a situation that was that serious. Before then, me and some of my friends, growing up had been through hard times and had some drama and things, but that was the first like suicide attempt issue that had ever come up with somebody that I knew personally. And, I was 18, 19, maybe at the most at the time. And, my first instinct immediately, without even like really thinking like, oh, what should I do? What should I say, etc., was simply, first of all, to calm the friend down, to reassure them that what they were being told that led them into that thought process and therefore led them into that action, was that those words meant nothing because that person was an asshole and that they shouldn't listen to them, and from there, and my roommate, if I'm remembering correctly, it's been many years by this point, but if I'm remembering correctly, I think that after that, we just talked with this friend in question for a good while until they were comfortable enough to go on on their own and everything. And, and then we left them to it and said, if obviously if you need to talk, if there's anything else you want to get out, feel free to hit me up whenever. And then that was kind of, and that was, that moment actually was pretty impactful for me because, like I said, that was the first time I'd ever had to, contend with something like that. And I wasn't even the person who was going through the bad half of it. My half was just trying to help that person, when they had come to me to seek any kind of guidance. A more recent example actually just happened within the last week or so, which is actually what reminded me to, kind of get this topic in motion. Another good friend of mine, who I've known for the last several years now, decided to tell me, and they trusted to share with me that they were a victim of sexual abuse when they were younger, and that they only recently had really even understood that they were being taken advantage of, and they wanted to. They were trying to solve a separate issue, and they were contending with that on their own. And they wanted to share that with somebody that they could trust, to which I said, okay, well, I mean, I am more than happy to hear out anything that you have to say, to which, they were very kind to share that with me. And, by that point, I had told them, like, and this is kind of where I'm going to relate to you who have asked this question, I told them, like, obviously, I don't know what that feels like. Now, in comparison to the first issue, now I do know what it is like to at least feel suicidal. There have been maybe 2 points in my life where I've been so tremendously messed up by something that I have felt suicidal thoughts. And I think most people, from what I have figured out, I think that most people at some point in time have probably been that upset. Even if they're not someone who is, typically depressed, I think that at some point we all as just people, we experience something that messes us up that bad and makes us think it, at the very least, not attempt it, but at least think it. And I've thought it at least 2 major points in my life over the last couple years, actually. But that aside, I was able to relate to, now I can relate to what that friend felt like. I couldn't at the time. And then this more recent case, obviously, not even obviously, I mean, I guess I'll say, I have never been a victim of sexual abuse. So I don't know what it feels like to feel, what a lot of people call shame. Even though and I think a lot of people would agree, I think most people would agree that it is not something that you should be ever ashamed about. It is merely something awful that has happened, which is exactly what I told this friend when I spoke with him recently. By this point, I actually have quite a few very close personal friends who I've known for many, many years now who have been victims of sexual abuse. And that's not only in different ways and different contexts at different age ranges, by different kinds of people, but also in how each of those individual friends have learned to deal with them, as their life had gone on. The biggest thing that I've changed my outlook on, because, I had gone to counselors growing up, and I was kind of, I don't want to say programmed, but within my own personal experience, I was not very prone to take counselors as a way of like, pardon me, as a way of getting better, as counselors as a form of help, and that is because I don't believe truly in my life I have been to a therapist before, and as I've now seen what a lot of my close friends, one of which I will name because for those of you who may or may not have seen We're Still Here by Martin Billany, Martin's life has taken a major turn for the better thanks to him seeing a therapist and going to group therapy, no less. And I'm extremely proud of him. And I will say to anybody listening, if you haven't checked out We're Still Here, I'm going to link a playlist to that and an annotation, and also in the description below, because it is absolutely worth seeing if you're dealing with any sort of depression. There's a lot of really inspiring things that have come from that. I also did an episode myself, which I was very happy to be part of on that, and I'm very, very proud of what I had to say on that. So, but that aside, seeing the effect that therapy, like real professional therapy, has had on friends of mine in recent years, and actually another friend of mine who I don't remember if they've said this publicly, so I won't mention their name, but they actually just told me recently that they are finally about to go see a therapist to conquer their own personal issues, which are very different compared to any of the stuff that I talked about. And they're actually looking forward to it because of the research that they did on the therapist in question about how they specialize in exactly the type of things that exactly the type of person that this friend is like. So like that's so that they're looking forward to getting that help. What I have also determined, this I do understand, and I think because of just my apprehension towards talking to people that I don't know about my own problems, I understand that seeing a therapist or a doctor or a counselor or anybody in between that is scary, and it's intimidating, and my like anti-rationale is, oh, they don't know me, they don't know the context of my full situation. Like that was my biggest reason for not seeing somebody when I was feeling depressed over the last for 4 months. Like I mentioned during that period, and it was because like, oh, it's such a it's such a long story, and I don't want to tell that story to somebody that that I don't even know, to ultimately just probably not even get anything out of the therapy session in the first place, especially when I already think I know what the solution is, etc. And that was, whether or not that was the right route for me to be taking, that was my my thought process, and I can say objectively that that's not the right way to go about this. Now, going back to your actual question in terms of helping this person in question, the truth of the matter is there is nothing, in terms of like really helping them, there's nothing that you can do other than pointing them in the right direction and being there for them. Because that is the most that I have been able to do. That is the most that we as friends can do, is we can be there to support the people that we know and love in need to the best of our ability. And we can do supporting that is a very broad term, because that can be anything. That can be cheering them up. That can be, just listening. That can be lending any sort of advice. But the truth of the matter is the best way to help them is the first part, pointing them in the right direction, which is getting them proper help. And sometimes that might involve maybe some kind of medication, some kind of physical therapy, possibly, and most commonly, I as I've found, is just speaking to a specialist on the matter. And the results don't lie. Everybody I know who has taken that path of, being depressed and having a major issue and then have finally worked up the courage to go talk to somebody qualified, to help them, to truly help them, and set them on the right path, it is, tremendously helped. So, if the evidence of, that this is a solution, speaks for itself. Now, the other reality, what this really comes down to, and this is in regards to, your friend who is hurting themselves and, who has at least attempted suicide before, this is, the reality is that at the end of the day, they need to help themselves. No matter how many, wonderful friends that they might have like yourself, no matter who they talk to about it and how qualified they are and, et cetera, the decision to get help in any way has to come to themselves. And that is, kind of the ultimate eye-opener for, whether you can relate to what it is that they're going through or you understand truly, that doesn't matter. You don't have to understand to help. Anybody can help anybody. As human beings, we can sympathize and empathize with people, without necessarily knowing, exactly what they're going through feels like for them personally. Does that help? Certainly. Does that make you does it make you less qualified as a kind person? No. The simplest amount of hey, is there anything I can do for you? Hey, do you want to talk about it? Is there anything that you want to do to, is there anything we can do to fix this? Can we work together? Can I help you somehow? Anybody on this earth is capable of that, as far as I'm concerned. So to answer your question, that's all you got to do is be there for this friend. And, the fact that as you described, it's gotten to this level of seriousness, I would say flat out, be like, hey, I'm really worried about you. I'm really glad that you've shared, what you're going through with me, and I want to be there for you and help you in a way that I can, but I think that maybe you should see a specialist about this because I don't want this to happen to you again. As I'm speaking for you, but I'm assuming you don't want this to happen to them again. I don't even know the person. I don't want that to happen because I don't want that to happen to anybody. So be there for them, point them in the right direction, lend them any support you can. It doesn't matter that you've never been depressed yourself, that or that you've never been that level of depressed that you've cut yourself or that you've ever attempted suicide or thought about suicide or anything. It doesn't matter. Be a good friend, lend support, help. That's about all I had to say. And I'm going to wrap this up. You know the usual. But I hope that this helped you, who asked this question. I hope that this helped anybody who's listening. Don't be afraid. No matter what the case is, whether you're the depressed one or you have a depressed friend, don't be afraid. Help others, find help for yourself. There are a million ways that you can get back on your feet. It's not easy. I know it isn't. From my, smaller scale experience, I know it's not easy, but there are solutions to this. There's better ways. Just help yourself, help each other, do the best that you can. That's going to wrap this up. So thank you for listening. I'll have probably a more upbeat topic next time. Don't know yet, but I just wanted to put this out here as soon as I could. Thank you again for waiting. I'm very sorry one more time for not addressing this one as quickly as I could. I have no good excuse for that, but I hope that this was soon enough to help you in some small way, and the rest is up to you. Take care.